speaker is Dejan Dželebžić, and I'm very happy to introduce him. He's part of the core team of the project. He's teaching at the classics department, and well, I guess that's it for the introduction. So,
yeah, thank you. It is
yours.
enough. Yes, thank you, thank you, thank you for coming on this second session. In this lecture, in this session, we will move from late antiquity towards early modern period. As you know, focus of our project is on two historical periods, late antiquity and early modern period. But this lecture is something in between, in mid-Byzantine period, because Michael Psellos was an intellectual of 11th century. But when you speak about Byzantium in general, you never leave behind completely late antiquity in many ways. Yes. First of all, Christianity was born in antiquity, and most saints, for example, are from the late antique period. Fathers of the church, martyrs, and so on. Ecumenical councils happened at that period. So it is one reason. The second reason could be, it is not the only one, of course. They, through chronographies, Byzantines, which was a very red genre of Byzantine literature, they have always contact with late antiquity, and they were interested in Roman history and especially, of course, in church history. But it is not the whole story. Late antiquity was present also through education. Handbooks for grammar, for rhetoric, for philosophy, and for various kind of sciences, medical science, natural sciences, so on, so on, so on. Was also most of them that Byzantine used were written in late antique period. But even in such one situation, it is Michael Psellos is a special case, yeah, because his contact with late antiquity is much more direct. He was, we today know and believe, and that he was influenced much more by some thinkers of late antiquity, and especially, as you shall see in this, as you will see in this lecture, by Neo-Platonist philosophers, especially. Yeah. And many times you will read that Michael Psellos is one of the most important intellectuals of Byzantium in general. Then Michael Psellos was certainly the most influential and most important intellectual of the 11th century. It is it is beyond doubt. But you will, especially in recent time, that Michael Psellos is the most important Neoplatonist in Byzantium. There is actually only one person, one intellectual, whose could be so important Neoplatonist. It is Gemistios Pliton, who lived in the second half of the 14th century and the first half of the 15th century. And he was responsible for the so-called Neoplatonist of Renaissance period, who, it was one circle about of people, Neoplatonist intellectuals, who gathered around Medici house in Italy, and Pliton, who lived for a long time in Italy, was responsible for founding this circle, and of course for he was a spiritus movens for translating Plato into Latin in this early modern period. But it is for Platon, just to make one reference. Platon belonged to wider movement, the movement about which fits more to Renaissance period, but Psellos is a more curious case because it is a Middle Byzantine period, and if Psellos didn't write so much about philosophy and the Neoplatonist philosophy, we couldn't imagine how much they knew about this philosophy. Psellos really was an author who left behind him a lot of writings in different genres, from letters, speeches, which writes almost every Byzantine author left behind him some corpus of letters, but he left more than 500 letters. Then speeches of different genres. Then two histories, of course, and he is most important for writing history. But what is of the great importance for us today, it is a very big, huge collection of theological and philosophical minor writings of Michael Psellos. All of them, it is about hundreds of such writings survived. And they are put in 4 volumes, of modern edition, 2 theological and 2 philosophical. And when I say philosophical, that means not only philosophy, pure philosophy, as they used to say. It is, of course, it is also some writings that we would call today scientific. For example, you have explanation how earthquake became, or something about other meteorological phenomena, some from medicine, and so on and so on. And another important thing is that I should mention for Psellos, that he was teacher, professor. He was teacher. He had a circle of students, and we don't know details about it. But many of these short writings are he addressed to one student or to a group of students. So he was invited many times to write about Aristotle, about Plato, about some of these things. And his importance is unquestionable. But what is for us, as I said, the most important thing is his connection with Neoplatonists. Why? And only one specific aspect of this. It is so-called Chaldean oracles. I don't know whether you have, some of you was in contact with this kind of literature. Chaldean oracles are one corpus of fragmentary survived texts that was written down in late antiquity, probably in the 2nd and the 3rd century. What survived today, only 300 maybe and 50 verses in hexameter verses are survived. They are, and this in I think 190, just 190 fragments. Psellos made one collection of 42 such fragments and supplied every fragment with some commentary on this. But I shall speak more about this later. I would start this presentation with one self-presentation of Psellos about his education and his interest in ancient philosophy, Neoplatonic. It is one very important chapter of a few modern printed pages of a modern book. It is in the sixth book of chronography. At the moment, this story starts at the moment when he started the story about the emperor, Byzantine emperor Constantinos Monomachos, who ruled from 1042 to 1055 for 13 years. And it was a period when Psellos was entered the court and became one influential figure in this period. This period of 11th century was very unstable in Byzantium. 14 rulers changed during his life, and you know, in a empire like Byzantium, 14 rulers for such relatively not so long period means that it was very unstable. For comparison, you have in the period that follows from the end of the 11th and the most part of the 12th century, only we have 3 or 4 rulers for that period. It is the Komnenian dynasty, and it is very stable political situation, and it could influence Psellos on some. In the result was that Byzantium weakened very much at that period. Many most territorial losses they suffered in southern Italy, and the most important is Asia Minor, which was very important. It was heart of Byzantium actually for centuries before. At the beginning of this story, Michael Psellos said that at the moment when Constantinos Monomachos became emperor, I was 25 years old. So it means we know exactly that he was born, from these words, we know when he was born actually. Yeah. We don't have his biography, but he used to write about himself very much, and you have many different writings. But this, for us, about his own education and intellectual wandering, this is the most important writing. He said then that he was at this age, 25, and that before that he already finished studies in rhetoric and philosophy, which made 2 columns to basic things in the education of any Byzantium. But he is critical about situation, about knowledge of Byzantium and this of ancient philosophy at that time. He said that he could find only some phrases, philosophical phrases, some words, some sentences, and it was, he said, like some columns or hills that you saw, but you cannot find the deeper meaning of all of this. And he described how he devoted himself to search for deeper meanings of this, and that he then goes from one teacher from another, from one book to another, and at the moment, before he was 25, he found already Plato and Aristotle. And he said that all before teacher he had before was recognized that all of them are less important than these two, the most important teachers. So it is a little bit to introduce you also in his style, which is very, very attractive, I think, for reading, yes. But it is not all. Plato and Aristotle, it is not for him was the peak of the knowledge. For him, there is something which is more important still. And that's with this. You should say goodbye to this picture. And we are now at this, and we can read now together this. Starting from these authors, Plato and Aristotle, I completed the cycle, so to speak, by coming down to Plotinus, Porphyry, and Iamblichus. Then, continuing my voyage, I put in at the mighty harbor of the most admirable Proclus. From Proclus, I intended to proceed to metaphysics. He said first philosophy. It is a translation by Suter, who said that metaphysics is, he always speak about first philosophy, and he means metaphysics. With an introduction to pure science. Thus, I began with an examination of abstract conceptions in the so-called mathematics, which holds a position midway between the science of corporeal nature, with the external apprehension of these bodies and the ideas themselves, the object of pure thought. In this already, we have many Neoplatonic ideas very clearly expressed, but without mention, yes. I hope from this study, it is underlined in another column, I hope from this study to apprehend something that was beyond the reach of mind, something that was not subject to the limitations of substance. Then we have this text in Greek. So it was his intention to reach something which is beyond mind. How is it say? Which is not subject to the limitations of substance. Such desire, such trust for knowledge, which is not does not belong to reason, led him to Chaldean oracles, for example, and to Neoplatonists in general, because Neoplatonist has a very strong religious intention, and they adopt Chaldean oracles at very early stage. But I will say more about this. Now, between these two chapters, he speaks how he studied mathematics, namely geometry, arithmetics, but also astronomy and music. We have quadrivium, really, he said, and that he, in accordance with a book called Epinomis, which is pseudo-Platonic dialogue, he all of this put in some harmony. Firstly, he studied separately these sciences, but then he tried to harmonize all of these knowledges, yes, to have. And then he proceeds to the next chapter. And he said, I had heard it said by the most learned philosophers that there is a wisdom which is beyond all demonstrations, beyond proofs. Demonstrations in that meaning, all demonstrations, apprehensible only by the intellect of a wise man in a moment of inspiration. This, in the moments of inspiration, it is said actually in Greek, sophronos enthusiasm nous. Enthusiasm, meaning it could be said enthusiastic, but in his basic original meaning, inspired by God. But he also adds sophronos, which means that it had some limitations. It is not inspiration, you know, and some mystical. It should have some inspiration, which is the translation is the only existing translation in English by Suter, yeah. Which is not excellent one, but it is not only my opinion, but generally people say this. Even here, he continues, my resolution did not falter. I read, he didn't give up. Yeah. I read some of the secret books, and grasped their meaning as far as human nature allowed, of course, for I myself could never claim that I had an accurate understanding of these things, nor would I believe anyone else who said he had. He read some secret books. On the other hand, it is by no means beyond our natural capacity to dwell on one science as a special subject and for sake of research to make excursions, as it were, into other branches of learning in a general survey, returning later to one's original starting point. So you should have one field of research, which is your, but it is welcome if you go for some time. But it is not by chance that he speaks about these things actually at this point, because he speaks now about some secret books. And that secret books, I believe, and not only believe, I think I shall demonstrate this. Secret books are actually Chaldean oracles, what I mentioned already. And in Greek, these sacred books are Aporreta Biblia, which I have in my title of the Aporretos Gnosis. He has now, he said, Aporreta Biblia. But I put Gnosis, not Biblia, not books, not secret books, but secret knowledge, because the knowledge is here what matters for him. Books are only instrument here for this. And of course, Aporretos Gnosis appears in another Psellian texts, and the word adjective aporretos in Greek means something which is a secret, and he can range from the everyday meaning, it has everyday use to say something an aporrito to anyone, but in such way that other people do not hear this. And also, but in most cases, and especially in this of Psellos, it is something which is connected to mystic, divine, and something which is, for this reason, unexpressible, which is literary translation of the word. It is this previous text in Chronographia was written in the decade of 60s, when Psellos was 45, maybe 50 years old. This text was written a little bit before this. It is an accusation of his former friend, Patriarchus Michael Kyrolarius. He was, they studied together, and but at some point they have some clash, and Psellos wrote one accusation against Kyrolarius. Sometime, we know exact year, it is, as you can see, 1059. And I took this because the Chaldean hieratic art he mentions here, Chaldean books. So we can read this as well. I know that most of you have not heard of the Chaldean hieratic art. Most of you didn't know for this. It is an ancient and rather antique philosophy unknown to most people. Their religion is mysterious and secret. Under the Emperor Trajan, a man called Julian published their beliefs in verse, which those who revere them called oracles. The philosopher Proclus, a man of exceptional nature and who studied all philosophy, though a pagan, dealt with these oracles. He valued the Chaldean beliefs and constantly studied their oracles. He referred to those pagan demonstrations as flashes of words, as Procopius of Gaza tells us, and sailed off with full sails to their hieratic technique. So it is a translation by Frederick Lauritsen, and very good one. He translated only this passage. The whole speech is not has not been translated still in English, as far as I know. But it is important for this talk very much. First of all, he said that Chaldean is hieratic art. Hieratic art, so it's very religious thing. Secondly, he underlined that it is ancient and that it is unknown to most people. He means that it is unknown, of course, to most people in 11th century Byzantium. But I would think it is true that it is known to most people, but it means, on the other hand, that some people knew that, and not only Michael Psellos. Exactly, Patriarch Kerularius here is accused of practicing some pagan cults. It is a very severe accusation in this period. So that's why maybe that he speaks very openly in this passage, but few years later he didn't speak. He didn't say Chaldean oracles because he took some distance from this. Yes, he refers also to the origin of the Chaldean oracles. He said their religion is mysterious and secret. And then, under the Emperor Trajan, a man called Julian published their beliefs in verse, and so on. Julian, it is a Neoplatonic tradition. Julian was a soldier in Roman army, somewhere from the eastern part of the empire. He served the army together with his father, who also was. He was also called Julian. Julian father and Julian the son. And then it is we can we can read about them the method in which they collected this in the next, I think, slide. Then Proclus. The Proclus philosopher, a man of expert nature and who studied all philosophy, though pagan, dealt with these oracles. He valued the Chaldean beliefs and constantly studied their oracles. He now underlined what is of importance for him. So it is quite clear now that in the previous chapter, Secret Books refers to, I think, to the Chaldean oracles. It is a study that appears not long ago, a few years ago, but Frederick Lauritsen, who studied different phases in the thought of Michael Psellos, and how Chaldean oracles and Neoplatonist he passed through different phases of this, and maybe we shall return to this. But it is about Chaldean oracles. Now I have some passages that could explain, I think, better what they are. The Chaldean oracles are divine revelation, or so were believed to be by their Neoplatonist commentary of a cosmological and soteriological system, and of a set of moral and ritual rules and instructions. What survives of them is a total of some 350 lines in Greek hexameter verse, divided into 190 fragments of an equal length, and the overwhelming majority of which have reached us through two channels, Proclus and, to a lesser extent, Damascius. In Byzantine time, however, Damascius' testimony as transmitter and interpreter of the Chaldean material was completely ignored, while Proclus remained an influential figure exegete the oracles. So Proclus is the only source was for Psellos. But Psellos became very important because after him, this Proclus writings about oracles disappeared. And we, the other Byzantines, till the time of Psellos, even Platon in the 14th and 15th century didn't have at his disposal Proclus writings, but only that of Psellos. But his approach was very different. Now, who was the first to introduce the Chaldean oracles in the Neoplatonic circles? The very first man known to us who sought to understand, explain, and propagate this occult wisdom were Porphyry, Amelius, and finally Iamblichus, who established the Chaldean oracles as the holy book of paganism. These names, namely Porphyry and Iamblichus, are testified as the first commentators in the survived work Vita Procli by Proclus student Marinus in the 5th century. There is a possibility that already Plotinus was vaguely aware of the existence of the oracles, but he certainly made no conscious use of them. The most important, however, Neoplatonist who made a collection and accompanied it with a detailed commentary was Proclus. Proclus, it is in the fifth century that it became so popular. It is not, of course, it is from a study devoted to Oraclean, to the origin of Chaldean oracles. So this evidence passed to Byzantines. Psellos was not first who was interested in this. Before him, the very important name is Procopius of Gaza, because Procopius of Gaza wrote a refutation, one refutatio about Proclus text. I think that they too, Procopius and was contemporaries, although Procopius of Gaza was younger than Proclus, and I believe that at that time it was very popular in philosophical circles, and Procopius had some feel need to write this refutation, yes, to some polemic about. But this work, unfortunately, also didn't survive till today. But as we saw previously, Psellos read also Procopius of Gaza. He had his writings, and some scholars thought previously that the main source actually of Psellos was Procopius of Gaza. But today we are sure that he had Proclus writings. So Procopius of Gaza wrote the refutation of the Proclus collection and commentary on the Chaldean oracles. The oracles are also mentioned by Procopius' contemporary John Lidos, like 6th century again, who lived also at the time of Justinian. Then we have, after so-called Dark Age of Byzantium, we have other evidence for the existence of some knowledge of Chaldean oracles. 9th century writer Aretas, who is important for revival of some ancient studies in Byzantium, and very important 10th century pseudolexicon, who also, among other things, has and the story about two Julians, father and son, that I referred to already. And after Psellos, as I already said, it was George Gemistius Pliton who was devoted also some focused his research on this. Now, Psellos' collection of the Chaldean oracles consists of 42 oracles, or logia in Greece. It is said oracles, but logia can be said utterances, also utterances. And each is followed by commentary. Psellos also wrote 3 short texts exposing the theology of the oracles. It is very important also. So he didn't only made his own collection of 42 oracles and supplied this with commentaries, but also he wrote three short treatises, and from this we know much more about this. Yes, because and it shows that he had Proclus at hand when writing this. We know about cosmology of, for example, many details. And this cosmology is very complex and very strange to us. Yeah. Sometimes only it reminds had something in common with Christianity, but in general it is a pagan cosmology. And we don't have time to go to details, but I can mention some things only. That according to Psellos, Chaldeans had, for example, they speak about the existence on 7 worlds. 7 worlds. Only one of these worlds, some of them belong to celestial region, to ether, but only one is our world, and it is called Misophais, which is that hating light. So, and it is the world which is under the moon. They said it is under the moon. So it is actually earthly world. But there are other six. Important, some gods or name of gods of pagan world are mentioned in this cosmology. I shall refer only to Hecate, because Hecate was present in all magic practices of the ancient world, and he has some servants. She had some servants who are called connectors, because they connect through them. Our world is connected to divine, which is up, and such other things. In any magic, almost description, magic practice, Hecate almost always appears that I read from late antiquity, and she has a very important place in this cosmology. So it is a very pagan, and it is strange that some Byzantines were interested in this. But one of oracles that are included in Psellos collection describe a ritual where Hecate is present, and it is about some golden sphere. He has some golden sphere with some signs on it, and Psellos describes this, and at the very end he says it is foolish. It is foolish. Just it is foolish. But he still included this foolish thing in his collection. So it could be something that one say that it is maybe he thinks that such thing is just superstition, maybe, or something like this. But generally, he took this episteme, this science, as he said, very, very seriously. And we have one Chaldean oracle as example. Yeah, now it is number 158. In 158 in the collection. Modern collection we have, but he said ude totisilis kivalon krimno catalipsis ala ke idolon merisis topon amphifaonda. It is, of course, should be read in hexameter, not like this. And now, and you will not leave the translation, and you will not leave behind the dregs of matter on a precipice, but there is also a portion for the image in the place surrounded with light. So Psellos, these two verses divided in two parts, and he commented first the second part, but there is also a portion for the image in the place surrounded with light. He first commented this. It is his first. In his collection, it takes the first place, and the second place is the first verse. And you will not leave behind the dregs of matter on a precipice. But what is if you read only this? It is unreasonable, and what does it mean actually? What is dregs of matter? And Psellos is here to explain this. So he had a translation of this. Chaldean oracles is do not leave behind the dregs of matter on a precipice. And the explanation, exegesis, is in this oracle the expression dregs of matter means human body that is composed of 4 elements. The oracle says to the student teaching him, do not raise only your soul to God and above the confusion of life, but also do not leave, if possible, your body, which is dregs of matter, to this earthly world. So one should care also of salvation of his body, not only of his soul. It is this what is said in this oracle. Namely, the oracle calls this earthly place precipice, because our human nature has fallen here like over a precipice. Cataclysmizis, it is his. Thus, the oracle advises us to exhaust our body by divine fire or after making it quite thin and fine, to raise it to ether or to be elevated by God. To ether, sorry, I cannot. By God. To the place that is immaterial and incorporeal, or corporeal but ethereal or celestial. Exactly this happened to the prophet Elias. He now introduced something which is very, his public is familiar with this. Prophet Elias, and before him to Enoch, who were transferred from this very life to more divine world without leaving behind the dregs of matter, their bodies to the precipice. And the precipice is nothing but this earthly place. So it is an explanation of the oracle. And what follows is a Christian approach to this. He said, although this teaching is admirable and extraordinary, but one should know that expenditure of our body and its departure from this world to the divine one does not depend on us and on our human power, but exclusively on God's grace, that by secret fire, aporreto, again aporreto peri, by secret fire, exhausts matter of the body and grave, and by a fiery vehicle our earthly nature raises to heaven. So what he introduces here as argument against this, their view in general is correct. So you should care about body, not only about your soul. But it is in accordance with Christian thought. But what they didn't know, it is that it depends only of God's grace, and it would be Christian approach. Every single commentary in Psellos has a similar structure. You have first an explanation, and Psellos in that possibly relied on Proclus. In that he can also put some additions to this, but obviously at the end there is a commentary which is in accordance and in harmony with Christian teaching. So the question, after all of this that I tried to present, is why one Christian intellectual of the 11th century was so interested in these very pagan teachings and the rituals and so on and so on. He's not. We saw that he at his youth he was more enthusiastic about it, I think. As he is getting elder, toward the end of his life, he's more interested in physical things and physical explanation about natural phenomena and so on and so on. And then he again could rely on some teaching of Proclus, Neoplatonist and others, but also he refers also to Aristotle and Plato as well and so on. But one, I think, should keep in mind this dynamics, the development of this teaching. At his very youth, he was not maybe so satisfied with just Christian teaching and so on, and was very curious to know other things. But as time passed, he took some position. Today is very popular to say that Psellos, Platon, and so on are Hellenes in Byzantium. So, but I think that it is a simplification in a way, because what is true, it is that they adopted a very vivid desire to learn things in a similar way that ancient philosophers did also. But it does not mean immediately that they were not that they abounded the Christianity, Christian faith, as people want to see, and in some simplicity, these things. But it is some kind real revival of ancient thought. Antiquity, ancient philosophy and all always was present in Byzantium. But with Psellos, a new era started. Because previous, as David says, that for Quellen Forschung, which was before Nemesius at the very end, it could be compared with this. Because the first stage was in which what we call first Byzantine humanism, first phase of Byzantine humanism, which it is 9th and 10th century. It is a period when they again was trying to collect, to make edition and something like But this period with Michael Psellos, he's maybe the first who have some interest, vivid, real interest in these things. I think that could be enough 1 hour to speak, or a little bit less. Thank you. Thank you for that. Now, questions. Yeah.
I think there was an overview slide of the importance of the Chaldean oracles in his thought during his lifetime. Could we have a recap of that overview? So, because he seems to have changed his evaluation of the Chaldean oracles throughout his life.
It is actually conclusion in the article written recently by Frederick Lauritzen, who studied Proclus. It is an article about Michael Psellos as reader of Proclus. And there are many references to Proclus throughout Psellos' opus. So from the first time, he's mentioned already in when Psellos was how many, less than 20 years old or so, or less. So for the first time, and the last mention, as you can see, in 1079. So he tried to three phases to find three phases of his interest for Proclus, for Neoplatonist philosophy, and specifically Chaldean oracles. So the first phase is Chaldean oracles as a hermeneutical problem, and at that time also Psellos shows some interest in logic. In logic. The second phase, which it is Chaldean oracles, it is when he was 25. The year when he mentioned in the chronography, Chaldean oracles as a theurgical problem now, not just hermeneutical, and he showed some interest in relation between the incorporeal and corporeal, asomata, kesomata, which is a distinction often made in Neo-Platonistic philosophy. And in the third phase, less prominence of Chaldean oracles and greater interest, less prominence in Chaldean oracles when he was 40 years old and later, less prominence of Chaldean oracles and greater interest in physiology, together with the more precise employment of Proclus' philosophical principles. So he studied Proclus all his life and not yes. I put this only first of all because scholars of Byzantium take simply this that he was Hellen or he was Christian or so on, but some development for 40 or maybe 50 years of his learning, things change, and especially because he read a lot, wrote a lot, and so on. That's why I put this, and specifically because the changes towards these oracles. Yes, this. Yeah.
So I have a question. Are these Chaldean oracles connected to prophecies mentioned in dreams and oracles mentioned in dreams?
No, in dreams, but in some special state of mind. On one hand, we are told that they are trained. It is not something that happens spontaneously. Yeah, there was some kind of it is a religion of with some mysteries, and as you have seen, father and son was at the same. So they are trained for this, and they probably collect these things for a longer period of time. Maybe for 1 year, maybe for years, maybe for decades even, and write down all this. Many times we are not sure if those for Julian, after recovering of this, if he was aware of his words, he said. It is some kind of trance, yes, he felt some trance. And some people who was in his circle wrote this down, what he said, you know. But no, it didn't happen during dreams. Yeah.
My main exposure to the Chaldean oracles is the fact that they are cited. You mentioned the significance of the night and death goddess Hecate in Psellos cosmology, and she shows up, maybe not in the Chaldean oracles, but she shows up in late ancient oracles talking about Jesus, talking about Christ. And Augustine quotes these oracles, and Eusebius quotes these oracles. And I'm curious, does Psellos talk about Jesus in the pagan oracular tradition at all, or is that not?
I think that it is a matter of late antique syncretism, that you have a very different religion influenced by each other. So Hecate can appear. I think it was very popular goddess at this time. And already, at least from the 2nd century, at least, at the time when we are told that, for example, in Lucian, in one dialogue, Apiston, is speaking about Hecate, and we have some description that she appears, and then when the session is over, she disappears. So we have, it is the central point of this description of this session. Already in the 2nd century, at the time of Mark Aurelius, for example, or something like this. So I'm not surprised that it appears. I didn't know this, but I'm not surprised that she appears also in some connection with Christianity because of syncretism, religious syncretism of late antique period.
So I was really struck as well about two things. Since we're trying to link our various lectures up, the mention of the prophet Elias and Enoch being raised, translated to heaven, is used by Nemesius as well, when he says that basically everyone dies, but there are one or two interesting exceptions. But I was just going to say, I was also really struck. I find it very beautiful and illuminating of the way humanity is kind of at its best works. In this passage where Psellos is saying, well, what is the precipice? And he says, well, the precipice is where human nature has fallen to. And then he introduces this foreign element, this Hebraic element of Elias and Enoch. But then I was just thinking how beautiful that is to think of Elias and Enoch. Their rising to the sky takes off, it takes a new meaning when you put the two images together. The precipice is where we've fallen off of, and then Elias and Enoch are sort of brought back to their natural place. It just struck me, I mean, of course it's not at all scientific, but it's a beautiful conversation.
No, on the topic of Hecate and oracles mentioning Jesus, I think this is a whole tradition of, as they would put it nowadays, cultural appropriation of Christianity into the ancient tradition, or vice versa, which is at times a matter of some sort of literary mystification, as the Chaldean oracles, I think, are more or less the same thing, and as the whole tradition of some philosopher, just as Iamblichus writing on the mysteries of the Egyptians, trying to explain stuff about Egyptian religion. Actually, nobody by that time, no matter how deeply involved, was in pagan rituals. Well, we know that in Damascus' Life of Isidorus, there was a Damascus hero actually buried his father in an Egyptian rite or somebody, but this is a very rare occasion of somebody being familiar at that age with what Egyptian religion was all about at all. So probably this kind of incorporation of ancient religions, which were not very well understood by the Greco-Roman world, into the philosophical discourse of the time, be it Neoplatonic or Christian Neoplatonic, because this is also a thing, is the same as the incorporation of the prophesizing about the birth of Jesus into pagan oracles. There are oracles ascribed to the Sibylline books, which were also found to prophesy the apparition of Jesus. There is the famous medieval interpretation of the fourth eclogue by Virgil, etc., etc. So I think this falls in the same tradition, and the fact that this has something to do with the most witchy of all pagan goddesses, Hecate, is secondary compared to the fact that this was a sort of like maybe not only syncretism between two religions, but trying to put the coming of Jesus into the context of the traditional culture which existed in the late antiquity.
Yeah. But we are told for Proclus, I think, that he was initiated in various mysteries, for example, that they practiced. And I think that as time passed, that they were involved really in these religious practices much more. And how Michael Psellos describes his approach to Chaldean oracles, Chaldean books, it is an interesting thing, because he said, even here my resolution did not falter. I read some of the secret books and grasped their meaning, and they said then, as far as a human nature allowed, of course, for I myself could never claim that I had an accurate understanding of these things, but nor would I believe anyone else who said he had. So he didn't say that he wasn't involved at all in these things, because if you want to learn this science, episteme, as he said, you must be in a way also involved in the mysteries as well. And that's his reservation is very because I do this, but only for sake of research, to see what kind, and then I get back to to my science. It could be exactly the Christian theology, because when Byzantine said to kath imas, it means Christian teaching. Yes.
I was just wondering. You mentioned that oracles offer a weird, strange cosmology. They are. So that's my question. They are some sort of doctrine. They offer the view of the world, meaning they identify. I'm just asking: are they identifying some forces, hidden powers that work in the world, in the nature, that we can invoke through rituals, something like that? And then I'm just now thinking aloud, so that's, could it be because in the second phase of his interests you don't have to go back, but it's we don't, I remember. So in the second phase, he was interested in the relationship between corporeal and incorporeal, and that's why he was drawn to the oracles. So I'm just wondering that he was on the search. He was Christian, and so he supplemented whatever he was reading with the Christian idea, this way or the other. But he was in the search for something that Thomas Aquinas got with Aristotle. Aristotle has his doctrine, like physics and metaphysics, and identified all these forces in nature and so on and so forth. And Psellos was actually after something similar. I'm just thinking maybe that's the case, to find some kind of, or to expand his knowledge of this world, even though he's a Christian, but he's looking for how this world functions. And you said that he was curious about, he was trying to provide explanation of the thunder and the earthquakes. And so he was really into these natural phenomena, and he wanted to know why and how they happen. And maybe this escapade into the oracles that are pagan, doesn't matter that they are, maybe there is some knowledge of the world. Now, there that I don't want to kind of give up on, because the rituals and are pagan. So anyway, just a thought. And I'm just speculating about his motives.
I think that his motive could be only this trust for knowledge, for searching truth, and it was one way. And if I think that he could not be involved in these studies if Neoplatonists before did not adopt this in such a way. He, as a reader of, first of all, Proclus, he said many times, not only at this place, that for him Proclus is the most important philosopher, and because he was so fascinated with him, as we see already in 1034 when he was 16 years old only. It is first mentioned, so very, very young. So it means that he, from that time, was fascinated by Proclus, and he, yes, that was way. And of course, after that, with this some mysterious atmosphere, and it is mentioned also in the oracles themselves. Yeah. So, and some rituals existed.
Yeah. And the thing is that back at the time, again, we have to adjust our world view to their, to kind of give up our world view to go back in time, and that these are the people who are not looking for laws of nature. They were looking for hidden meanings. So it's different approach to nature. They were interested in how things happen, but they were looking for some occult forces that can
behind.
Could be not
behind.
occult in the way we are, but behind hidden forces according to which nature functions. So yeah.
Yes, it is general for pre-modern world, pre-modern, medieval, and ancient, and yes.